Your iPhone was probably made in China. So was the shirt you're wearing, the headphones in your pocket, and half the stuff in your fridge. And for decades, all of that cargo followed the same route. South through the Malacca Strait, west through the Suez Canal. 40 days on the open ocean. But in August 2025, a Chinese container ship called the Istanbul Bridge didn't turn south. It turned north, straight into the Arctic Ocean. And behind it, 13 more ships followed. No permission from NATO. No approval from the United Nations. Just China, Russia, and a frozen shortcut that could redraw the entire map of global trade. This isn't a test run. This is the opening move of a new game. And the West isn't even on the board. The Arctic Ocean has been a graveyard for most of human history. Ice thick enough to crush steel hulls, darkness for 6 months straight, water temperatures at -2 degrees Celsius. That's cold enough to kill an unprotected human in under 4 minutes. For centuries, explorers tried to find the Northwest Passage and the Northern Sea Route. Most never came back. Their ships became ice tombs. But something changed. The ice is melting. In 1980, the Arctic Sea ice covered 7.9 million square kilometers in summer. By 2024, that number dropped to 4.2 million. That's an area larger than India, just gone. And into that opening, China is sailing commercial container ships. Not research vessels, not military icebreakers, the same Maersk-style box carriers that bring your Amazon packages. The Istanbul Bridge is 260 meters long. It carries 3,820-foot containers. And it just completed a voyage from Ningbo, China, to Felixstowe, UK, in 18 days. The traditional Suez route takes 40. This wasn't luck, this was calculated. China calls it the Polar Silk Road. Here's what makes this route both terrifying and brilliant. It's 7,000 kilometers shorter than sailing through Suez. That's not a rounding error. That's the distance from New York to Berlin, just erased. It cuts fuel costs by 40%. During test runs between 2021 and 2024, COSCO Shipping, China's state-owned giant, saved 6,900 tons of fuel and $9 million across just 14 voyages. Scale that to hundreds of ships per year, and you're looking at billions in savings. But the real advantage isn't speed or money. It's geography. The Suez Canal is a single-lane choke point. When the Ever Given got stuck in March of 2021, global trade froze for a week. 400 ships backed up. $12 billion per day in cargo just sitting there. The Red Sea has been under attack by Houthi rebels since late 2023. Commercial vessels are getting hit with drones and missiles. Insurance premiums for Red Sea transits have jumped 300%. Some carriers are refusing to go through at all. The Panama Canal is drying up. Water levels dropped so low in 2024 that daily ship transits were cut from 40 to 24. Climate change is strangling it. And then there's the Strait of Malacca. 80% of China's oil imports pass through that narrow channel between Malaysia and Indonesia. It's 2.8 kilometers wide at its narrowest point. The U.S. Navy could blockade it in 15 minutes if a Taiwan conflict breaks out. China knows this. It's called the Malacca Dilemma. And it keeps Beijing strategists awake at night. The Arctic route bypasses all of it. No American warships, no Middle Eastern instability. No canals that can be closed by a single grounded ship. It's a geographic escape hatch, and only China is using it at commercial scale. But here's the catch. China doesn't own this route. Russia does. The Northern Sea Route runs 5,600 kilometers along Russia's Arctic coastline, from the Bering Strait in the east to the Barents Sea in the west. And every single ship that wants to use it must ask Moscow for permission. This isn't a suggestion. It's Russian federal law. You must submit a voyage application to the Northern Sea Route Administration in Moscow. You must follow their traffic rules. You must hire Russian icebreaker escorts. And you must pay Russian fees. Those fees aren't cheap. A single icebreaker escort can cost between $300,000 and $1.5 million, depending on the season and ice conditions. Moscow controls the entire route. They decide who sails, when they sail, and how fast they sail. They have radar stations, military bases, and Coast Guard outposts every few hundred kilometers. If your ship breaks down, Russian rescue teams respond, or they don't. Russia is the gatekeeper, and China is fine with that, because Russia is desperate. Western sanctions after the Ukraine invasion cut Russia off from European markets. Their oil, their gas, their grain, all blocked or tariffed. They needed customers. China needed a shortcut. Their interests aligned almost perfectly. Russia provides the icebreakers. They operate a fleet of over 40, including nuclear-powered monsters like the Arktika class. These ships are 173 meters long, displace 33,000 tons, and have nuclear reactors powerful enough to light a city of 200,000 people. They can smash through ice 3 meters thick while moving forward at 12 knots. No other country has this capability. The US has 2 aging icebreakers. Canada has 6. Russia has 40. They own the Arctic infrastructure, and China is renting it. In October 2025, Beijing and Moscow signed a formal agreement to jointly develop and commercialize the Northern Sea route. Not a memorandum of understanding, a binding deal. They're building Arctic-capable ports. Russia is upgrading Murmansk and Arkhangelsk to handle container traffic year-round. China is financing LNG terminals and transshipment hubs. They're launching joint ventures to build ice-class cargo ships. These aren't normal vessels. They have reinforced hulls, double-plated steel bows, and heating systems to prevent ice buildup. They cost 40% more to build than a standard container ship, but they can operate in temperatures where a regular ship would be crushed. COSCO has ordered 14 of them. China Merchants Group has ordered another 8. This isn't experimental. This is industrial-scale deployment. They're planning year-round container lines. Not seasonal, not occasional, permanent, and they're moving fast. In 2023, 36 Chinese cargo ships used the Northern Sea route. In 2024, that number jumped to 79. In 2025, it hit 114. The growth curve is exponential, because every time a ship makes it through successfully, the route becomes more normalized. Insurers gain confidence. Ports adapt their schedules. Logistics software gets updated. And suddenly, this frozen gamble becomes standard operating procedure. But here's where it gets dangerous. The rest of the world has no say. The Northern Sea route runs through Russian territorial waters and international waters. There is no international governing body, no UN oversight, no multilateral management. It's Russia's route, Russia's rules. The International Maritime Organization has guidelines for Arctic shipping, but they're voluntary. Russia ignores the ones they don't like. Western shipping companies won't touch it. Mediterranean Shipping Company, the world's largest carrier with 850 ships, publicly announced they will not use the Arctic route. Their CEO cited environmental risks and the unpredictability of a route controlled entirely by a geopolitical rival. Maersk, the second largest, said the same thing. Hapag-Lloyd, CMA CGM, all the major Western carriers have stayed away. Insurance companies are refusing to cover Arctic voyages or charging premiums so high they erase the cost savings. Lloyd's of London, the global insurance giant, won't underwrite Arctic container traffic. They cite catastrophic risk, because if a container ship gets stuck in the ice 2,000 kilometers from land, there's no rescue. Russian icebreakers might help, or they might not, depending on politics that week. A hull breach in -20-degree weather means the cargo freezes solid in hours. Environmental groups are screaming about the ecological nightmare of heavy fuel oil spilling into pristine Arctic waters. Cleanup in ice conditions is nearly impossible. The Exxon Valdez spill in Alaska in 1989 happened in relatively warm, accessible waters, and it took 30 years to clean up. An Arctic spill would be permanent. But China doesn't care. They're accepting the risks because the rewards are existential. This isn't just about saving money on shipping. This is about breaking free from American naval dominance. Right now, the U.S. can choke China's economy by closing 3 choke points: the Strait of Malacca, the Suez Canal, and the Panama Canal. But they can't close the Arctic. Not without starting World War III with Russia. By building this route, China is creating a supply line that America cannot blockade. And they're doing it in partnership with the one country that can actually defend it. Russia has hypersonic missiles, nuclear submarines, and Arctic military bases. The U.S. has almost no Arctic presence. This is checkmate geography, and it's happening in real time. In 2024, Chinese shipping companies almost doubled their Arctic voyages. 14 ships in 2025. That number will hit 30 in 2026. 50 by 2027. Because the ice keeps melting. By 2030, scientists predict the Northern Sea route will be ice-free for 4 months per year instead of 2. By 2040, possibly 6 months. That's half the year. At that point, this isn't an alternative route. It's the primary route for Asia-Europe trade, and China and Russia will control it completely. Let me show you what this means in practice. COSCO Shipping, China's state giant, operates a fleet of over 1,300 vessels. They move 21 million containers per year. If even 10% of their Asia-Europe traffic shifts to the Arctic, that's 2.1 million containers bypassing Suez, bypassing Western control. That's billions in revenue for Russian icebreaker services, port fees, and fuel sales. Moscow is already building the infrastructure to handle it. They're dredging Arctic ports, laying fiber optic cables along the seabed, and installing GPS relay stations. This isn't speculative. This is concrete and steel. China is building ice-class container terminals in Dalian and Tianjin. They're training crews in Arctic navigation. They're buying satellite imagery to track ice conditions in real time. The Northern Sea Route Administration in Moscow has digitized the entire permitting process. You can now apply online, upload your ship specifications, and get approval in 48 hours. They're making it easy because they want the traffic. Every ship that uses the route is a data point proving its viability. Every successful voyage normalizes it. And eventually, the insurance companies will cave. Premiums will drop. Western carriers will quietly start using it. And by then, China and Russia will have built an entirely new trade corridor that bypasses every institution the West controls. Here's the invisible leverage. Right now, if China wanted to ship goods to Europe without using the Arctic, they have 2 options: Suez Canal or rail through Kazakhstan and Russia. Suez can handle 50 ships per day. The rail route can handle maybe 5,000 containers per day. That's nothing. But the Northern Sea route, once fully operational, could handle 200 ships per month in summer. That's 800,000 containers. That's enough volume to shift global trade patterns. And here's the kicker. Russia can weaponize access. If the West imposes more sanctions, Russia can simply refuse passage to European-flagged ships, or they can charge them triple. Meanwhile, Chinese ships sail through at cost. This turns the Arctic into an economic weapon, a geography-based sanction system that punishes the West without firing a shot. NATO has no answer for this. The U.S. is scrambling to build icebreakers. They've commissioned 3 new polar security cutters, but they won't be ready until 2029 at the earliest. Canada is upgrading their Arctic bases, but they're a decade behind. The EU has no Arctic naval capability whatsoever. By the time the West catches up, the route will be established. Permanent, irreversible. So, the next time you order something online and it says shipped from China, remember this. That package might not be coming through Suez anymore. It might be coming over the top of the world, through waters that were frozen solid a generation ago, escorted by Russian nuclear icebreakers, traveling a route that no international body approved. Controlled by two countries the West is desperately trying to isolate, and there's nothing stopping it, because the ice is melting whether we like it or not. And China isn't waiting for permission. They're not asking for consensus. They're just going. 14 ships became 30. 30 will become 100. And by the time Western policymakers figure out how to respond, the Arctic will already be a highway. The new Silk Road. Frozen. Functional. And completely outside Western control. China and Russia aren't reshaping global trade through diplomacy or war. They're doing it through pure geography. By sailing where no one thought commercial ships could sail. By turning climate change into strategic advantage. And by the time you realize your iPhone didn't come through Suez, it'll already be too late. The route is open. The gamble paid off. And the map of global power just got redrawn in ice.